Hi and welcome everyone to our 82nd episode of The Little Inside. My name is, as usual, still Tobi. And this week I'm going to talk a little bit about the 3 types of conceit. So let's get started right after the intro. So what are the 3 types of conceit? The 3 types of conceit are the conceit of I am better than others. The second one is I'm worse than others. And the third one is we're all the same. I'm just equal to all others. So these are the 3 types of conceit. So we easily see the error in the first 2 actually. I'm better than others and I'm worse than others. But very often, particularly in spiritual circles, it is often believed, for example, that we are all the same, we are all one, and so forth. That is actually a type of conceit. So why is that? Let's go maybe first to the first type of conceit and the second one, and the downfalls of them. I am better than others. Is that really true? Is it really true that I am better than others? Now look at the way I formulate that sentence. I say, I am better than others. Now that in itself is a really, really strange statement to make actually. Why? Because what do I mean by I? What do I mean when I say I am better than others? What does that really mean? Actually, I would encourage everyone who's watching that video to sit down and deeply question this kind of sentence, that kind of feeling of I am better than others. What do I mean by I? What do I mean by better? And what do I mean by others? So sometimes we might feel better than others, and sometimes that can be a very, very subtle idea. For example, when you see someone else making a mistake, like someone else is misbehaving, or someone else is caught by the police, or a famous politician maybe messes up big time, or a superstar makes a mistake, he loses it in front of the camera, gets really, really angry, shouts at the reporter. And then we look at that person, and in that moment, when we see someone else losing it, being really, really angry, unhappy, making mistakes, failing, and so forth, then we feel a little bit better than them. That's why often we enjoy, deep down inside, watching other people fail, watching other people mess up, watching other people make a mistake, because as soon as you see someone else making that mistake, in that moment, you're in a position that is a little bit better than the other person, because right now I'm not committing that same mistake, or who would be as stupid as doing something as silly as that? I'm not doing any of that sort. It makes me kind of feel a little bit better about myself. It lifts me up. Seeing other people fall down lifts me up. So that would be that first type of conceit. It can be very, very subtle. Just a feeling of I'm better than that person. In reality, you can be better at performing a certain action than another person. You might be a really good archer. Your friend might really suck at archery. Then that doesn't mean that you are a better person, but that specific action in that specific moment is more skillful than the specific action that your friend does in that moment. Maybe you are better at solving the Rubik's Cube than someone else. It doesn't mean that you are a better person. It just simply means that you're really skilled at solving the Rubik's Cube. But we confuse these kind of things very often. We say, well, you are a criminal, for example. We say to someone that sits in a prison wearing the suit of a criminal, we say, you are a criminal. And thereby we are throwing that whole being into the box of being a criminal. So everything they are turns into the criminal. So we take out all the other aspects that they might have. They might be a very caring, loving parent, right? They might be really, really nice to their dog. They might be fantastic at gardening. They might have compassion, and they might have shown that compassion so many times during their life. They might have kindness. They might feel hurt or sad. But to an outsider out of prison, we look into this prison and we see, it's full of prisoners. And it's just prisoners. It's bad people. Bad people. It's a bad person. Again, I'm putting myself up a little bit, because in order to be in the position to judge someone else as bad, I have to be better than them. Or I have to have the feeling or the belief that I am somehow better than them. My whole being, my whole person is better than the other person. And so that's why I find this is quite absurd, to actually go and say, I am better than someone else. Where some of my actions might be more skillful or more rehearsed or better trained than the action of someone else, it doesn't make me a better me. Do you see what I mean? It's a bit difficult to explain that one, but I'm referring to the actions that we might take as a person and the person itself. The feeling of I am better than others. We might have that, and we do have that pretty often, I think. Most of us experience this feeling quite a lot on a daily basis in various different forms, often very subtle. Of course, we don't go around thinking, I'm so much better than others. That would be too loud. We would kind of be shocked by such a thought. Probably most people would be kind of shocked by such a thought and wonder, wow, how can I think like that? But we feel it in a subtle way very often, in many different kinds of ways. Feeling that we are essentially a better being than the other being. I'm better than those terrorists. I'm better than those criminals and thieves and killers and murderers. I am a better me, a better self, right? So, as the Buddha taught about me-making or mind-making or self-making, the fabrication of making oneself into a self, and then comparing that sense of self to other selves, to others, that would be at the root of conceit, and that's what's kind of weird here. You might still think of your own actions being better than another person's actions, but very often that's not where we leave it. We would then feel better about ourself. It's about making a self out of that. And everything that I just spoke about is of course also true for the idea of I am worse than others. Also, that is very, very widespread. This feeling of being inferior, of being undeserving of another's love, of being undeserving of happiness because I'm just so bad. I'm such a bad person. I'm such a bad me. I would really also encourage questioning that, asking deeper, is that really true? Am I a bad me through and through? Because assuming that I am bad as a whole being, as a person, it completely cuts out anything else but bad. Designating myself as a bad self, a bad me, it cuts out everything else. Everything good that I've ever done, all my good thoughts, all my good attributes, it completely cuts them out of the picture. So soon as I'm labeling myself, my whole being, my entirety, as something that's bad or worse than others, then already that is very twisted. But we never really question that because these are automatic responses that we have to life, to the circumstances, situations we're in. The self likes to compare itself to other selves. How am I doing? Am I a good self? Am I worthy of love? Well, I've messed up several times, so I'm probably not worthy of love. I'm such a failure. Look at this guy, he's sitting in meditation much better. He is better than me. He's better than I am. Not he is better at meditation. but it feels like he is as a whole being better. And to a being there are infinite potentials. There's infinite variations of emotional states and thoughts and impulses and intentions, both skillful ones and unskillful ones. And we all harbor these infinite potential within ourselves. And sometimes, just because a negative potential manifests within a being, it doesn't mean that the entire being is bad through and through, that there is no goodness to that being. Or the other way around, that there is no badness to that being, that this entire being is glorious and amazing. We might glorify people. For example, it happens very often with guru type figures, that you look up to this amazing guru and then you project all this goodness into that guru, and then people are deeply disturbed and shocked when they find out that their guru does things such as, farting, or maybe saying things that are not really true, like quoting important scientific facts, but they are actually not true. And then we're disillusioned. We're like, oh my God, I thought my guru was this perfect, radiant being, never making any mistake ever. And now I see him making a mistake. And then we push that aside, or we find excuses or something like this. But in the conditioned realm, we all have infinite kind of potentials, and they all manifest in various different ways through us. So it's important to keep that in mind before we make like a complete judgment of an entire being as being good or bad, or comparing ourselves, feeling better about the self, worse about the self, and so forth. So these are the first types of conceit, right? Feeling like I am better than someone else, which is funny, it's absurd, that kind of thought. Another thought, I'm feeling worse than someone else. I'm worse. So you want to spot this. Directly see it in your practice. Oh, right now that's what I'm doing here. I'm making a self. I'm constructing a self. Or even better, the neurons in my brain are firing in a way that maintains the illusion of a good or bad self, a good or bad me. If you can see into that, it should usually dissolve right away, because you look through it. You look through the illusion. It's an illusion. It's not real. And if you buy into that illusion, you will suffer that illusion accordingly. Now, the third type of conceit, it's quite common also, the idea that we are all the same. Now, obviously, that is also not true. We're not all the same. For example, we all feel very differently. I might wake up and feel really grumpy, and my wife might be in a great mood. She just had a very nice dream. She wakes up, she feels fantastic. I had a nightmare, I feel horrible. So in that moment, we're not in the same state. We're not feeling the same way. We're not having the same thoughts. You can say that within certain qualities or attributes, again, we are the same. For example, every living being is looking for happiness and well-being, and every living being wants to avoid suffering and misery and painful situations. In that, we are the same. But saying that we are all the same kind of self, that's what that says, right? We are the same kind of self. That is not true, because all selves are totally differently conditioned, and they go through completely different kind of conditioning process, you can say. All of us. We move at different times, our bodies all look differently, our emotions are all different. But surely you can say in certain aspects we are the same. For example, in the aspect of emptiness, we are the same. Or the aspect of that we are all thinking, that we all have thought. As soon as we have a brain, we have thoughts. Unless you're highly, highly realized, you have no more thoughts. But until that point, well, there are still thoughts, right? So we can say most people, most beings have thoughts. Or most beings desire happiness and want to get out of suffering and misery. Or we all have to eat, we all have to feed, whether it's feeding our delusions or feeding our emotions or feeding our self-making process or feeding our bodies. We all have to feed. So that's something that we all have in common, whether it's a dog, a cat, or a human being. We're all feeding. So it's there's some things in which we are similar, or we do things, we do the same, you can say, but that doesn't again mean that all selves are the same. Now, in the highest kind of attainments on this path, then where all the duality dissolves in our inside, in our deep understanding or deep realization of the truth, where all the duality is uprooted and it dissolves, well, in that state, that is the same state for all. It is not a different state. And this is where all these concepts such as me and other, all, left and right, good and bad, all that are kind of uprooted. They have no footing there. So that's a different story altogether. But for most of us, I think we should really not start with building the roof of the house, but build a good foundation. Really learn to understand your mind properly, structure your life so that you have a fair chance of actually gaining some insight, nourish the desire to actually attain liberation from suffering, complete liberation from suffering, and so forth. And all that will eventually culminate in profound insights that then extinguish, maybe you can say that extinguish, or that lead to an extinguishing of the perception of duality. Or you can say like there is an ending of fabricating stuff, fabricating this and that, me and mine, you and yours, and I'm better, you're worse, I'm worse, you're better, and all that kind of stuff. It comes to an end there. So we can already see that in the beginnings of meditation practice, when we sit down and enter inner silence, when the mind stops producing so much thought, when it slows down, we slowly begin to see that there are gaps in between thoughts, and in these gaps it's quiet, it's silent, and these gaps become wider and deeper, and we see more and more that there is another dimension of being to us. And through that dimension you will understand all these deeper truths, and this will finally also dissolve these three types of conceit, this me-making, my-making, I-making, slowly coming to an end. So this is all that comes to mind for the three types of conceit for this time. Again, it's just a little insight, it's a small sharing, a small like kind of reflection on this topic. By far not perfect in any way. I'm sure you can find a lot of very, very nice descriptions and very, very good informations on the topics online. But I hope anyways that this little insight somehow helped you with your studies a little bit, inspired you a little bit to let go of this me-making or mind-making and find some more peace on the inside. Now I wish all of you a wonderful next week and look forward to see you again next Wednesday. Until then, bye-bye.